Hello and welcome into the Hail Varsity YouTube channel. I am Greg Smith, recruiting extraordinaire for Hail Varsity, and we are back once again for a football video of the week. I'm joined again by Steve Marik, staff writer of Hail Varsity. Steve, how are you on this lovely Thursday morning?
Hello, Greg. It is lovely, and I'm excited to get this video idea that we have concocting here on the road here. So yeah, I'm excited for it.
Yeah, so I think for today's video, like I was kind of struck by something that you wrote this week. I am generally struck by something that you write. You've got a couple of things. You've got something that just went live about what happens and doesn't happen if Nebraska wins or loses against Northwestern this week. Or you had to go live this morning if the game is not happening this week. It's happening August 27th in Ireland. So make sure you guys go to hailvarsity.com and check that out. Subscribe if you are not already a subscriber. The football yearbook is also right around the corner. So this morning, we are going to talk about intriguing games. So Steve put together a list of his top 3 most intriguing games for Nebraska football this year. And while I think his list is sound, and we will get through that, I also differ on that list. So one of the 3, though, and we're going to start here, we are in total agreement on, and I'm not sure how anyone could leave this off. It's the first game of the season against Northwestern. So for you, Steve, what was the reason why Northwestern had to be on this list?
Yeah, like you said, it was an easy pick. I mean, everything that's happened this offseason with this program, all of the coaching changes, all of the roster, management moves going on, the influx of talent and all the guys from last year, a lot of veteran guys leaving. There's just a lot to talk about, and there's a lot to think about how this is going to play out to start the season. And obviously the season opener is just going to be, it's kind of like a weird thing. It's in Dublin, Ireland, which is over 4,000 miles away and over an ocean. So it's just an odd place to play a football game. And it just kind of throws a wrench and kind of a weird vibe into a season, a make or break season for Nebraska. Where, the 5th-year head coach and Scott Frost is entering this whole thing with the restructured contract, with the buyout that gets cut in half beginning October 1st. So it's a really, really important time to get off for us to a strong start for Nebraska. And Northwestern is just an easy pick for this of 3 most intriguing games. And so, that was honestly the first game that I written down when I was kind of writing through this whole thing.
Yeah, I do feel like you almost any of these lists or any of these conversations about intriguing games or games you're looking forward to or must wins, even like I think they all have to begin with Northwestern. And for all of the reasons that Steve laid out and more, I think that it's such a big potential momentum game for Nebraska. Nebraska has had such a hard time in the Frost era of really taking hold of momentum and getting the ball rolling in a positive direction. And I think that you have the opportunity to do something that the Huskers haven't done yet under Scott Frost, which is win 3 games in a row. But to win those 3 games in a row, because you've got North Dakota and Georgia Southern after the Northwestern game, you've got to win that first one, right? And so that first game is just such a big deal. Plus, I think that the closer we get to this game, the more we're going to talk about how much of a test for Nebraska's, I guess, mettle it's going to be to go out to Dublin and be able to perform in this game. This is a team that we haven't seen handle adversity all that well or change all that well. So to be able to go and kind of, like you said, and correctly, I think, in a weird football game and be able to pull that one out against a conference opponent that will be well coached. We don't know what the talent level is like at Northwestern this year. They've got a lot to replace on their own from their 2 best defensive players, but they're going to be ready, right? I think that everybody gives Pat Fitzgerald and that staff the benefit of the doubt. So it'll be interesting to see for a lot of reasons how that game goes. So what was another game, Steve, that you have circled as a most intriguing game?
Yeah. So just going down the schedule here, the one that, and I only had to pick 3 here for the most intriguing games. The one that I'm just really interested in, and this is not a sexy pick, but it's Bert Bielema and the Illinois Fighting Illini. There's something about this series that I kind of appreciate as like a college football fan. Like I said, they're not the sexy pick. They're Illinois. It's Brett Bielema. It's Bert. But I just think that, Illinois has won the last 2 games against Nebraska. And I have this feeling like around Nebraska's fan base that there's not a ton of respect there for Illinois. And like, why should there be? It's Illinois. But they've won the last 2 games and they've embarrassed Nebraska the past 2 games, in my opinion. So,
Right.
I mean, in 2020, they came to Lincoln, they ran the ball down the Huskers' throat in that COVID shortened season. And then last year they got out of there with a win for Brett Bielema's first win as the Illini coach. In a game where, if you looked at the rosters, I think you'd say, Nebraska had the better roster. Nebraska had the better talent, yet Nebraska lost, Illinois won. So, I mean, if Nebraska, in my opinion, wants to keep taking steps forward, wants to, climb out of this hole that they've been in for a while now, you need to start beating the teams like Illinois in the Big Ten West. And, it's doable. They're going to be maybe favored to win, Nebraska. But I don't remember what the spread was last year, but I'm pretty sure Nebraska might have been favored in that game as well.
Yeah, the one the year before that for sure.
Yeah, but yet they lost. So it's just, beat Illinois, and then we can start talking about, the heights that maybe Nebraska can keep climbing to.
The thing that's really interesting to me about this game, or intriguing, and I did not have it on my list, is where it falls in the schedule, right? Because it's October 29th and after a bye week, and the game before that kind of brutal Final Four games of Minnesota, Michigan, Wisconsin, Iowa, which, man, get your ice baths ready for those weeks, because goodness, that's a lot of physical football in a row. Because of that, and because you've played a chunk of the schedule ahead of that, we'll know what the Huskers are. By the time we get to that Illinois game on October 29th, we'll know where they're going. And that will determine to me whether or not they're favored, if you feel good, if Illinois is actually getting disrespected, if the Husker season is actually going well, because that's the end of a stretch of games that is just really favorable for Nebraska. On October 1st, it's Indiana, then it's Rutgers, then Purdue, then a bye week, then Illinois. That's a stretch of football. If Nebraska wants to go where they hope to, you got to be 4-0 coming out of that group, and at the very least 3-1, but you probably are favored in all 4 of those games if the season is going the way that that we think. And so that makes that more intriguing to me. But the game, my second pick for this, is actually the Oklahoma game. September 27th at home. We'll see if it's the big noon kickoff, if it's, a night game, whatever it's going to be. I do think it'll be kind of a showcase game. And in part because it's Nebraska, Oklahoma, and it's a big time rivalry. I don't know if the 2 programs in their current state merit that, but that's a totally different discussion. That game, to me, if Nebraska is 3-0 going into that Oklahoma game, and we'll see what Oklahoma is. I still have no idea what they're going to be this season, and it would not surprise me one way or the other if they're really, really good, if they're really bad, right? In the transition year under Brent Venables, a first-year head coach. I just don't know. That game is going to be a real important benchmark after the Huskers gave the Sooners all they could handle last year in Norman and really had opportunities to win that game. And that was one of those penalty games where there are a lot of penalties. You can picture, everybody now makes fun of and laughs at the Cam Jurgens downfield, block the guy too hard video penalty. But that happened. And so that one to me is just really interesting, because we're going to see what the Huskers are made of against a big time opponent, coming off of what they would hope would be a strong 3-0 start to the season.
Yep. I can see Oklahoma. That's a good pick. Then for my third and final intriguing game, I did the week right after Illinois with PJ Fleck in Minnesota. There might not be another, and I wrote this in the story, there might not be another head coach person in college football that irritates Nebraska fans as much as PJ Fleck. Yeah. And look, I get it. Some people don't like that he cares about his appearance.
That is a very mild way of putting that, but okay, we'll roll with it.
He dresses a little too well for most people, I guess. Plastic surgery, I don't know. I'm not really into that whole thing. It's social media being social media. But at the end of the day, I think he's a pretty good coach, right? And he's won the last 3 games against Nebraska. And Nebraska fans don't like him. And after last season's game, there was a little bit of a tension filled comments with the post game press conferences with PJ saying that was truly culture versus skill. So that was my PJ Fleck impression. But then Scott Frost was asked about that comment, and he had a little rebuttal to it too, saying that I think Minnesota has some good skill guys too. So our culture has gone 100 miles, he said. So yeah, it's just Nebraska and Minnesota. I think Nebraska fans maybe have kind of a big brother attitude still towards teams like Illinois and Minnesota when they shouldn't. And just look at the last 3 games against Minnesota. It's been very physical wins for the Gophers. And, I just think that's Nebraska fans could look at Minnesota and kind of see a team that they secretly want, deep down in their hearts. Like, oh, I want to look like that, where I'm just like bludgeoning people and going forward and nothing fancy and just kind of going right at people. So that's kind of the reason why I picked Minnesota.
I think you hit on something really important there. I think that the relationship or the feelings that Nebraska fans have towards Minnesota, and it's a little bit towards Illinois and I agree with you on the big brother thing, but Minnesota and Iowa both fit into this category where it's, I don't want to call it jealousy. Let's not go all the way there, because I don't want y'all to yell at me in the comments, but there's a little hateration going on about those two programs. And I think the part of the reason is that they look a lot like Husker fans would like for Nebraska to play. I think that's fair, right? I think it's fair to say that, especially the way that Iowa plays, with just the hard-nosed physical way that they go about things. They're always going to be tough. They're always going to be fundamentally sound. They're always going to play good special teams, and they always play good defense, right? And I think that those things are hallmarks of teams that Nebraska used to have, that they have not had for a long time around here. And I think that that's where some of that comes from. Plus, that is how you build these rivalries, right? Like, you don't like Iowa's program if you're a Husker fan. You don't like Minnesota all that much either because of the coach. Like, nobody really disliked Minnesota when Jerry Kill was the coach. But now with PJ Fleck, he rubs people the wrong way, and so people feel a certain kind of way about him. But my final pick is actually the Iowa game. I think that every year, to me, the Iowa game always is a big one, no matter like what the records are of the two teams involved in the game. Like, if Iowa's playing to go to the Big Ten championship, or if Nebraska is hoping to play the spoiler, or if Nebraska's hoping to get into a bowl game with a win against Iowa, like, I just always think that game's important. And at some point, Nebraska's going to have to get over that hump and beat Iowa. Like, that's just something like, and we talked about this last year, like Nebraska's inability to beat Iowa, Wisconsin, and now what's becoming Minnesota as well. It has been a real thorn in the program side, and you're never going to really take steps forward in the Big Ten West until you can go a season beating 2 of those 3. Like, you're just going to have to do it. And if you have to pick one, I think Nebraska fans would pick Iowa to consistently beat. And so I would have Iowa on an intriguing game. Plus, who knows where we're going to be at the end of the season. Like, if I like the predictions right now of what this whole thing looks like by the time we get November 25th against Iowa would be all over the board, right? Like, we just don't know. And that will also kind of shade what that game looks like as well, as far as where Nebraska sits and where the status of Scott Frost is and all of that. Like, there will just be a lot of intrigue with that game.
Yeah. Iowa won the last 7 games. They're riding a 7-game win streak and 1 in 8 the last 9. So they Hawkeyes have it rolling. Kirk Ferentz has it rolling against the Huskers. But yeah, like you said, Scott Frost has his teams have played Iowa tough. They
really have. Yeah.
They've taken them into the fourth quarter. They get up for that game, which is, good to see. So I totally agree. Iowa is a very intriguing game.
Yeah, it always, and I think that you're like, man, you said the last 7 games that they've won, and it doesn't actually feel like that, because you're right. Not only have those games gone into the fourth quarter, like I want to say all of them are 1-score games, right?
Yep, they are.
So, and some of those, man, the years start to mesh together. I don't think it was either last year or the year before where Adrian Martinez just didn't need to go out of bounds to stop the clock, and then they didn't convert the 3rd down, and Iowa gets the ball back. and proceeds to march down to get the field goal. Then I think that's the same game that the kicker then blew the kisses to Husker fans. But those are the kinds of things that you need in a rivalry, right? We talk about this, and this goes back and forth all the time between Husker fans and Hawkeye fans. Is this a rivalry? It 100% is, because
I don't know.
Everyone hates each other in it. Like, I just don't understand how you could not say it's a rivalry, other than Nebraska fans trying to thumb their nose up at Iowa. But you got to get over that at this point.
Yeah, I've heard that before. Like Iowa, some Nebraska fans say that the Iowa, they're not a rival. I'm like, what are you talking about? Of course it is.
And
it's like the definition of a rivalry. You can't stand those guys. They can't stand you. They're blowing kisses at you. You can't do anything about it because you haven't beaten them in the last 7 games. That's a rivalry. So it's just, it's funny when I hear things like that.
Yeah, and you actually, and I make the argument that you want it to be a rivalry because Nebraska needs to have that in this conference, right? One of the things that is a hallmark of the Big Ten conference, right? We can laugh about those trophy games all you want to, but that is like the conference is steepled in those traditions, and like it is just part of the fabric of the conference. So Nebraska needs to be able to have a couple of those games, and I think that they've naturally, obviously, it was going to happen with Iowa, even though people, I think, reluctantly kind of came into that because Nebraska fans probably expected to beat them a lot more, but Iowa has definitely become one. Wisconsin is a really interesting one to me too, as far as the rivalry goes. And the one that I actually wish would take off more is actually Michigan State. I don't think they've played every year, but those games have been really good between Nebraska and Michigan State. But maybe we'll have to do a football video about that in the coming weeks, about rivalries in Nebraska in the Big Ten Conference, because that's going to do it for us for this week's episode of the football video of the week. Make sure you are subscribed to Hail Varsity. Check out all the great content on the website. Like I mentioned off top, the Nebraska Football 2022 yearbook by Hail Varsity is coming soon. You want to make sure you sign up so you can get that into your mailboxes this summer, and we will catch you guys next time.